where one council member says President Obama owes the city big time and she wants to collect. Councilmember Joanne Watson saying the president should bail out the cash-strapped city because so many residents there voted for him.
After the election of Jimmy Carter, the Honorable Coleman Alexander Young, he went to Washington, D.C. He came back home with some bacon.
Right. I remember that.
That's what you do. That's what you do. Our people, in an overwhelming way, supported the re-election of this president, and there ought to be a quid pro quo, and you ought to exercise leadership on that.
So has the White House responded to that demand? Detroit News reporter Darren Nichols joins us. Darren, I suppose the White House has not specifically responded to that demand?
Well, absolutely correct. As far as I know, the president has not responded to that request. That is something that Councilwoman Joanne Watson has said on a number of occasions. This time, she linked it to last month's re-election of the president. She has called on numerous occasions over the last 3 or 4 years for the president to come in and bail out Detroit because of its numerous problems over the last decades.
I read, Darren, that the unemployment level in Detroit is up about 18%, and the city proper around 18%. Detroit's in deep trouble. What is it? Is there anything that could actually help Detroit? I mean, I imagine that money might get them through a month or two, but what does Detroit need? Because Detroit's in a terrible situation.
Absolutely. Detroit is in a bad state of affairs. I mean, you're talking about a city that lost 25% of its population since 2000.
And apparently we've lost Darren, so I guess that's the end. Well, we're not going to get him back. So let me turn to the panel and ask about that quid pro quo, whether or not it's illegal. So our panel tonight is the Weekly Standard's John McCormick and the Washington Examiner's Susan Ferrechio. So Susan, first to you. Any problem with the councilwoman's request?
She can ask for it, and many cities have received bailouts. In fact, there probably will be a number of big bailouts coming up in the coming year because the state-run pension systems are running out of money. They're all going to turn to the federal government to bail them out. I think that the Obama administration has kind of set the tone that they will be there to bail people out. They bailed out General Motors. They bailed out, folks who couldn't pay their mortgages. They're helping people who can't pay for health insurance. I mean, the idea is that we can provide for people who can't provide for themselves. So they've kind of set the tone that we will be there to help you if you don't have the money for yourself. So Obama will be there actually on Monday in Detroit to answer personally whether he's planning to give the city any money. But there's certainly precedent. It's happened before, and I think it's probably going to happen again with these pensions systems.
President Ford did it with New York back in the mid-'70s, so there is precedent. But the problem is, John, we don't have any money.
We're out of money, and I just don't know where this ends. I mean, credit to the councilwoman for being so brazen and actually using words like quid pro quo and bring home the bacon. I think that's actually, refreshing in politics. Usually they try and be a little more tactful with these sorts of things. But yeah, we're out of money, and I just don't see that making it past the Republican House. Obviously, the president and the Democratic Senate have some leverage, but where does this end? I mean, Detroit, we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars, but what's down the pike? I mean, California is the 8th largest economy in the world if it were its own country, and California is going to need a bailout pretty soon. So I just don't think this is really going to make it through Congress. I think Detroit's problems are deeper than any bailout can solve from Washington. They really have to tackle this themselves.
It's really terrible what's happened in a lot of these cities. I mean, especially like Detroit. And it didn't just happen in the last week. I mean, this is something that has been going on for quite some time. I mean, it's really rather tragic that a city, that has allowed itself to get, for whatever reason, that it's in such dire straits. I mean, these people are hurting, but where was their leadership?
Well, there's a lot of corruption. There's a recall effort with the mayor right now. Even though there's an election coming up in May, they want to do a recall effort that's going to cost them $1 million. There's lots of corruption. I mean, big cities have corruption. D.C., other cities. So, but Detroit, there's a lot of corruption. There's a lot of, for instance, this one example, the federal government took away $50 million in an annual grant because they cited reckless spending, corruption, nepotism. there's an example right there where Detroit could have had $50 million, but they lost it because they don't know how to, they don't have a sterling reputation for fiscal management.
So what do we do? Reward them and give them more money because they're corrupt? I mean, that sounds like a stupid idea.
I just think you can't do that, and they've got bigger structural problems here. Like so many cities, they've
But if they're
cash
replete with corruption, I mean, if they've got a lot of corruption, that's probably a pretty quick, easy place to pick, to start cleaning things up.
Exactly. I'm sure that there would be grafting. There are a lot of graft there. If the federal government were to send some money over there, people would be taking kickbacks and that sort of thing. I mean, they need a Rudy Giuliani is what they need. The people need to elect leaders who are worthy and actually good leaders.
Didn't their last mayor go to jail?
Kwame Kilpatrick. Now they've got Mayor Bing, former basketball great, who is struggling as mayor right now. But it's a city that's lost its tax base. There's no money coming in, and the school system is, failing the kids.
It's just terrible there.
The crime rate has skyrocketed, and everyone's moved out of the city. They've lost jobs. There are no jobs there, and that's the base of the problem.
And that's what the stimulus a couple of years ago tried to paper over these problems for a lot of cities. They got a temporary reprieve, and then when the stimulus funds ran dry, you had all these cities with the exact same problems they had before. It was just a temporary fix, and then some states actually tried to fix the problem. New Jersey, Governor Chris Christie, Scott Walker.
They've got to fix the problems and stop relying on the federal government, or the problems are just never going to get fixed. They're going to constantly need money.
All right, stand by, panel. Coming up, President.